Donna told you last week, all right, that there are two infancy narratives, all right, in all of the New Testament, all right, there are only two. One is written by Luke and one is written by Matthew. Mark and John do not have infancy narratives in their gospel. All right, all of the epistles of Paul, Titus, and all of them do not mention the birth of Jesus. All right, but yet, when we look at these two infancy narratives, they are very different. And what I'd like to do is try to explain to you the difference. We're going to try to look at four different things, okay? We're going to look, first of all, where Joseph and Mary lived. Second of all, we're going to look at where Jesus was born. Third, we're going to look at who visited Jesus after he was born. And the fourth thing is going to be what happened after Jesus was born. Where did they go? Okay, so first of all, in Luke, we read on Christmas Day, all right, that Mary and Joseph left their home in Nazareth. They traveled to Bethlehem, and that is where Jesus was born. In Matthew, Mary and Joseph were already living in Bethlehem. They had a house in Bethlehem. Okay, and that's where Jesus was born. Now, second thing, how was he born? All right, when we look out on our lawn out there, we have the manger. All right, we have the stable. It is only in Luke, all right, that Jesus is born in a stable, in a manger. Matthew, on the other hand, has Jesus born in the house that Mary and Joseph occupied. Okay, who came to visit Jesus?
Three kings.
In what gospel? Okay, in the Gospel of Luke, the one that we read on Wednesday, Christmas Day, all right, it was the angels coming and visiting the shepherds and singing Gloria in excelsis Deo and telling the shepherds about Jesus' birth. So it was the shepherds who came to see Jesus in the manger, right? Matthew does not have any shepherds, does not have any angels. So who does Matthew have that visits Jesus? The Magi. All right, so there's a difference right there. Now finally, what we're dealing with in today's gospel, all right, is that Matthew, after the birth of Jesus, he has Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, the Holy Family, going to Egypt. All right, in Luke's gospel, the Holy Family leaves Bethlehem and they go back to Nazareth. All right, so we have two different stories here. Okay, the central part is that Jesus was born of a virgin. Mary and Joseph was his earthly parents. All right, and he was born in Bethlehem. But everything else is different. All right, so which one is history and which one is... They can't both be history, right? Now I'm going to give you a little caveat. All right, in our family here of Good Shepherd, your beliefs are your beliefs. Okay, so in other words, we do not tell you what you have to believe. You believe what you want to believe. But Drew, Donna, and I would feel that we would be remiss if we did not at least expose you to new theology and New Scripture Studies. Okay, so we're going to look at Matthew's gospel, this gospel today. So why was it, do you think, that Matthew had Jesus go to Egypt? All right, the simple reason is that Matthew was a Jew. He was a good practicing Jew. After Jesus rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, the apostles were Jews. They worshipped with Jews. All right, for the next 40 or 50 years, all the Christian Jews, the ones who believed in Jesus, worshipped with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. All right, so there were three branches. All right, we had the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and then we had the believers in Jesus. All three were Jews. Now Matthew was worshiping with these people for 50 years. And in a Hebrew worship, all right, the rabbi would read a section of the Torah. He would give a little homily on it, and then he would open it up, for people to give their understanding. Now, in those times, Matthew is telling his friends that Jesus is the Messiah. But for 40 or 50 years, the Pharisees and the Sadducees were saying, we're not buying it. You can see that Matthew's getting a little bit frustrated. Now Matthew, when he decides to write the gospel, what does he do? He goes to the Old Testament and he says, I'm going to convince my fellow Jews, all right, by quoting the Old Testament, that Jesus is the Messiah. Now, one of the things that he is going to do is portray Jesus as the new Moses. All right? And he feels that if he can portray Jesus as the new Moses, his fellow Jews are going to say, yes, he is the Messiah. So he has to get Jesus into Egypt so that Jesus, like Moses, came out of Egypt. So how is he going to do that? All right? If you were writing a novel, how would you do it? All right, I'll tell you how he did it. He thought of something so horrific, all right, that there would be no chance at all unless they went to Egypt. And that horrific thing was the killing of the innocents. All right, Herod was going to kill every male child up to the age of 2, all right, so that he could kill this king of the Jews. Herod did not want anyone to be a threat to him. All right, so Matthew develops the story, all right, that Herod is going to kill every male child 2 years and under. So then the angel comes to Joseph and says, listen, you've got to get out of town, all right? So that's how Matthew gets them into Egypt. And so that when Herod dies, the Holy Family can come back and Jesus is the new Moses. Unfortunately, all right, the Jews that he was trying to convince that Jesus was the new Messiah, they didn't listen to that story either. And a few years later, they said, we've had enough of you guys. Get out of Judaism. You're never welcome in the synagogue anymore. In 88, they were expelled from the synagogue. All right. Now, what does that story mean to us today? We are celebrating, all right, the Feast of the Holy Family. We are celebrating that center feast of 3 people, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. The 3 people who Matthew has go into Egypt so that Jesus can come back as the new Moses. So let us try to boil that down a little bit more. What is the central point of today's gospel? And I think it is, just like when Mary was picked to be the mother of Jesus. A couple of weeks ago we had that feast, and we said her central piece was, let it be. All right, now we have Joseph. All right, the angel appears to Joseph and gives him this task. In the middle of the night, get to Egypt. And what does Joseph do? He says, let it be. It's a good thing I wasn't there. All right? Because if I was there, I would have said, listen, you Gabriel, Michael, you angels all look the same to me. Let me tell you something, Gabe. All right, you asked me to marry a pregnant woman. All right, I did it. And I'm still getting blowback from my friends. Now, in the middle of the night, you're asking me to pack everything up and get out of Dodge. You know Mary just delivered, right? She's a little bit sore. All right? The street sign down at the end of the block says that Egypt is 450 miles away. All right? You expect her to walk 450 miles being sore? You expect her every hour, 2 hours to nurse this baby? And besides that, I can't carry her, all right? Because I'm going to be busy carrying the sleeping bags, all right, the food for our journey, all right, and, like the box of Pampers. I can't do everything, So this is what you're asking me to do? And just, like it's an aside, all right? What am I going to do in Egypt? I'm a carpenter, and the last that I heard, the Egyptians are not making their pyramids out of wood. Expect me to go down there for a job interview? All right, that would be my take on it. All right, but Joseph just said, let it be. All right. What this boils down to, all right, is just the willingness to let it be for all of us, okay? Like I said before, we are the new family, Holy Family, all right? And when we think of the original Holy Family, we think of Mary and Joseph raising Jesus, right? They raised the greatest person that ever walked the earth, all right? They had a lot to do with Jesus' upbringing. They had a lot to do with making Jesus the person that he was. Now, before we just did a namaste. Right? What we are doing, let me just take that. Who here came here because somebody told you about Good Shepherd? Just about everybody, right? All right, once you came here, why did you come back?
Good feeling.
Did you feel loved? All right? That's what we're all about. Right? We're all about love. Right? You felt the love. All right? You give the love. And that's what we are as the new Holy Family. All right? We recognize the Jesus in each and every one of us. All right? That is the namaste. All right? To go up to somebody and say, I recognize the Jesus in you, right? And I honor that Jesus. Right? That's what we do as a family. And hopefully, we can do that outside those doors. hopefully we can go and give a silent namaste to everybody that we meet, recognizing that God is in each and every one of us, whether we're in here or out there. Namaste.
Namaste.